I may be a smartphone super nerd, but like most of you, I'm not an auto expert. When it comes to cars, I'm just a normal guy. And the Chevy Bolt EV is the first all-electric car that feels like it was made for the average person. I've spent 6 days driving it, and this is the MrMobile review. If you subscribe to MrMobile on YouTube, you've probably already seen the broad strokes on the Bolt EV in my test drive video from a while back. And if you haven't seen that, please subscribe to MrMobile on YouTube so you don't miss another one. I came away from that test drive hopeful, but skeptical about just how far I could take the Bolt EV on a single charge. This so-called range anxiety is the number one concern among would-be electric car buyers, which makes sense. You can't fuel up an EV in 5 minutes like you can with a gas-powered car, so you want one with enough range to get you where you're going without spending hours at the charger. To test this, GM took some of us press folk on an overnighter from Boston to Provincetown, Mass., a one-way drive of about 120 miles. This being New England in the springtime, the weather was a rainy 48 degrees on the way down, about 65 and sunny on the drive back the next day, and later in my review week, the temperature climbed past 90 for the first real taste of summer. What does this have to do with the Bolt's range? Well, actually, climate control is one of the more energy-sucking features in an electric car. So to try to maximize my range, for the coldest leg of the trip, I kept the cabin heat off, relying on the seat warmers and heated steering wheel to keep me comfy instead. Maybe you can guess the result. My butt and hands were warm, but my feet were freezing. And in any case, the constantly fogging windows made defrost a must. So for the rest of the week, I decided, look, I'll just drive the Bolt like any other car, using heat and AC when I want. That's how I figure most people want to drive anyway. And what I found was that in New England, you can totally get away with that. Pull up a map of EV charging stations on an app like PlugShare, and you'll find that Massachusetts has almost as many car chargers as Sox fans. So, while I made the 120-mile trip to P-Town with an estimated 64 miles left in the battery, according to the confidence gauge, I had plenty of options for a quick top-up on the way down, including a handful of DC quick charge locations that promise 90 miles of power in a half hour. Much more common in my Boston usage, though, were the Level 2 charging stations that offer about 25 miles per charging hour. Going back to those range numbers for a sec, my 120-mile trip to P-Town, plus an estimated 64 miles remaining, equals 184, well short of the EPA-estimated 238-mile range for the Bolt. But keep in mind a couple things. This was my first trip with the car, so the gauge wasn't yet calibrated to my driving style, and that style was a lot more aggressive than normal as I put the Bolt through its paces. Honestly, with as much power as this car gives you, it's hard not to push it to the limit. Which, by the way, is a software-defined ceiling of 93 miles per hour. Mash the accelerator, and the 200-horsepower front-wheel drive kicks you from 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds. You want to grip the steering wheel a little tighter if you do that. There's a bit more wobble in the wheels when you really floor it. But that kind of zip comes in handy for merging, passing, and quick turns near blind corners. Of course, you use a lot of power driving this way, so to reclaim some of it, the Bolt uses regenerative braking. Drop the gear shifter from D into L, and you enter a mode called one-pedal driving, which is exactly what it sounds like. Rather than using the brake pedal to slow down, you just let up on the accelerator. In this mode, the drive motor actually changes roles and becomes a generator momentarily, slowing the car as it converts some of its kinetic energy into potential energy, which is then diverted into the car's 60 kilowatt-hour battery. There's also a steering wheel paddle to manually toggle regen if you prefer to stick to two-pedal driving, but I've been driving that way for about 20 years, and even so, it only took me about a day to get used to one-pedal driving. Oh, and yes, the brake lights do go on in this mode. They're triggered when your deceleration rate crosses a certain -G threshold. The Bolt's performance was about the same across the two trim levels I drove. The LT and Premier have the same power plant. But while I found the LT serviceable, with its fabric seating and no-frills design, I have to admit I was happy to switch into the Premier, with its roof rails, leather interior, and accent lighting. Still, you won't find other high-end amenities, like power seats or a sunroof. Chevy says these were omitted to save weight, giving you the freedom to ferry more stuff around. The 17 cubic feet of cargo space with all seats occupied expands to nearly 57 cubic feet if you fold down the seats and factor in the basement space under the available false floor. And while we're talking available options, I should note that my Premier model also included both driver confidence packages. Those bells and whistles include forward and aft proximity warnings, side mirror danger lights that warn you when someone's in your blind spot, and that surround vision feature that combines images from 4 cameras into a bird's eye view of your car. All this stuff together makes the Bolt EV a lot easier than most cars to drive, especially in the city. One thing missing? A built-in Nav System. But I didn't miss it at all. Chevy figures you'd rather plug in your smartphone and use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and in my case, Chevy is right. Finally, GM's Onstar Service is here, and the onboard LTE hotspot kicks out Wi-Fi for up to 7 devices at a time. The data is unlimited and costs a very reasonable $20 a month if you want it. Are there still little hinky things about the Bolt EV? Naturally. Personally, I find the design pretty ugly. I wish it was sleeker, both for looks and a better drag coefficient. Also, I think features like high-speed charging and the requisite adapters should come standard in all models if GM really wants EVs to take off. And, well, that's something of an open question. As much as I like some of the company's cars, its history with electric vehicles is, spotty. You've got to do your homework when shopping for an electric car. If you're buying it to save on gas, make sure your electricity rates are competitive and see how robust the charging network is where you live and work. If you're buying it to curb your emissions, research how much of your state's energy comes from renewable resources. And be sure to factor in the various incentives if you buy electric. Depending on options, the Bolt EV runs from $37,500 all the way past $45,000. But federal and state incentives can take that down quite a bit, as can the various dealer discounts being reported as this video goes live. Apparently it's not moving as quickly as Chevy hopes, but that might change when national availability kicks off later this summer. Of course, that's also when Tesla Model 3 deliveries are slated to begin. But one thing I'm pretty sure about for now is that if you know you want an electric vehicle right now, it's tough to find a better mix of range, power, and utility than the Chevy Bolt EV. It's only been a day since I gave it back, but I miss it already. The Chevy Volt sounds a lot like the Bolt, but oh, what a difference a letter can make. Check out my Volt review from last year at the MrMobile on YouTube, and please, once again, subscribe so you don't miss more mobile tech video landing every week. Till next time, thanks for watching, and stay mobile, my friends.